You don't expect to see the man who once saved your life standing 3 feet away from you, holding a coffee mug like it's just another Tuesday morning. And yet, there he was, the guy who pulled me out of the abyss years ago, now wearing a press badge and an easy smile, as if fate wasn't cruel enough to shove us back into the same room. I froze. My throat tightened the way it used to when nightmares dragged me back to that night. Except now, the nightmare was flesh and blood and unbearably beautiful. His name was Evan Hayes, the boy who had been my lifeline when I was 17 and standing on the edge of a rooftop, convinced the world had no place for someone like me. He had grabbed my arm, steady and firm, whispering words that somehow stitched my heart back together. We weren't friends. We weren't anything. But he had walked away with a piece of me I never got back. And now, years later, he was my colleague at the Boston Herald. The newsroom buzzed with the kind of energy only breaking news could bring, phones ringing, keyboards clacking, editors barking orders across cubicles. But all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears as I watched Evan joke with one of the interns. His laugh was lighter now, less weighed down than the boy I remembered. I should have looked away, should have buried myself in my work like I always did. But his presence was gravity, and I was a planet that couldn't escape orbit. Daniel, copy desk needs that piece in 10, my editor barked, snapping me out of my trance. On it? I muttered, spinning back to my monitor. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but the words blurred. All I could think was, he doesn't remember me. He can't possibly remember me. But part of me prayed he did. That night, the newsroom emptied slowly, leaving behind the stale smell of coffee and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. I stayed late, as usual, rewriting leads and perfecting commas. The job wasn't glamorous, but it kept me alive in ways I couldn't explain. And then footsteps. Burning the midnight oil? A voice asked. I didn't need to look up. My chest knew the cadence of that voice before my brain caught up. Evan. I swallowed hard. Deadlines don't respect sleep. He chuckled, leaning against the edge of my desk. Too close. Close enough that his cologne clean, woodsy wrapped around me. Some things never change. You always were the type to outwork everyone else. The words pierced deeper than they should have. He remembered me. My eyes flicked up, meeting his. For a second, the years fell away. I was 17 again, trembling on that rooftop, and he was the stranger who refused to let go of my wrist. But then reality snapped back, and I forced a smile. Guess I'm predictable. His gaze lingered, searching, as if peeling away layers I'd spent years constructing. You look good, Daniel. I laughed, too sharp, too defensive. That's generous. Journalists aren't exactly known for glowing complexions. Evan grinned, but it faded quickly. I never thought I'd run into you here. Yeah, small world, I said, though my heart screamed unfair world. He studied me, quiet for a moment, then spoke softer. Do you ever think about that night? My hands froze over the keyboard. My lungs forgot how to function. Every day. Every goddamn day. But all I managed was a shrug. Not really. Water under the bridge. Evan tilted his head, unconvinced. His hand brushed the corner of my deckhand, almost touch that set my nerves alight. I think about it sometimes. How different things could have been. The silence between us thickened, intimate, dangerous. I broke it with a whisper I didn't mean to say aloud. You saved me. His jaw tightened. You saved yourself. I just didn't let go. I wanted to tell him everything I never said back then, the shame, the loneliness, the way his grip had been the only proof I deserved to stay. But the words lodged in my throat. Instead, I muttered, thanks, anyway. Evan's eyes softened. He leaned closer, voice low. You don't owe me gratitude, but maybe we should talk. Properly. Not as colleagues. Something in me cracked. I should have said no, should have protected the fragile walls I'd built. But my heart betrayed me. Okay. We ended up at a quiet bar down the street, the kind with low lighting and booths that encourage secrets. Evan ordered whiskey. I stuck with a beer. My hands shook, so I kept them wrapped around the glass, pretending it was just the chill of the drink. He started with the safe stuff, how he'd left Boston for college, worked in smaller papers, bounced between cities before coming back. He'd grown into himself, confident in ways the boy on that rooftop never was. And then he turned it back on me. "What about you? How'd you end up here?" I hesitated. My story wasn't pretty, but something about his gaze, the patience, the lack of judgment unraveled me. After that night, I tried to pretend it never happened. But pretending doesn't erase the scars. Writing helped. At first it was just journals, then essays, then freelancing. Eventually, the Herald gave me a shot. Evan listened like every word mattered. When I finished, he reached across the table, resting his hand over mine. Not forceful, just steady. "I'm glad you're still here," he said softly. My chest ached. "You make it sound like you didn't expect me to be." His eyes darkened. "Daniel, you were on a rooftop ready to disappear. I wasn't sure if that night would be enough." I stared at him, raw and exposed. His thumb brushed against my knuckles, and my breath hitched. For the first time in years, I felt seen, and it terrified me. That night, lying awake in my apartment, I replayed every detail: his voice, his touch, the way his eyes lingered on me like I mattered. My heart wanted more. My brain screamed caution, because this wasn't just attraction. It was dangerous, intoxicating, a collision course between past and present. And yet, as sleep finally claimed me, one thought pulsed louder than fear. I want him. The next morning, I walked into the newsroom with a hangover of feelings instead of alcohol. I barely slept, haunted by Evan's voice telling me he was glad I was still here. Those words clung to me like smoke, both comforting and suffocating. The newsroom was chaos, as always. Coffee-fueled bodies hunched over keyboards, editors shouting across desks, the television mounted in the corner flashing breaking headlines. But none of that mattered because my gaze found him immediately. Evan, leaning casually against a filing cabinet, tie slightly loose, sleeves rolled up, talking to a photographer. He looked untouchable in that morning light, like someone who had moved forward in life while I had been stuck, clawing at survival. When he spotted me, his lips curved in that same smile he had given me at 17. The one that said, "I see you, and you're not invisible." My stomach flipped. I tried to bury myself in my assignments, but he was everywhere, his laugh echoing down the hallway, his shadow passing by my cubicle, the way he always seemed to find excuses to talk to me about copy edits or pitches. By lunch, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my jacket and bolted for the rooftop terrace of the building, desperate for air. The irony wasn't lost on me. Rooftops and I had history. "Daniel!" A voice called behind me. I froze. Of course it was him. He stepped out into the crisp Boston air, the city skyline stretching behind him. "You okay?" I forced a shrug. "Fine. Just needed a break." Evan studied me for a long moment, then leaned on the railing beside me, close enough that his shoulder brushed mine. Sent a shock through me, like static that refused to fade. "Last night," he began. "I hope I didn't cross a line." "You didn't," I said quickly. Too quickly. He smiled faintly. "Good, because I meant every word." My chest tightened. I wanted to ask what he meant exactly, whether it was just friendship, gratitude, or something more, but the fear of being wrong chained my tongue. Instead, I whispered, "I don't know what to do with this, Evan. With you." His gaze softened. "Then let's figure it out together." That evening, against every instinct screaming at me to keep distance, I found myself walking beside him through Boston's cobblestone streets. The air smelled like roasted chestnuts and the harbor, and neon signs glowed against the darkening sky. We ended up at a tiny Italian restaurant tucked away in the North End, the kind with checkered tablecloths and candlelight that made the whole thing feel far too much like a date. Evan ordered for us like he'd been here 1,000 times. When the pasta arrived, I could barely taste it. My nerves were louder than my appetite. Halfway through, he set his fork down, eyes locking with mine. "Daniel, can I ask you something personal?" My chest tightened. "Depends. Why journalism? With your writing, you could have done novels, essays, anything. Why this grind?" I exhaled, fingers tightening around my glass. "Because facts can't be argued with. Feelings get dismissed, but a headline, a truth backed by evidence site forces people to look. Maybe I needed that certainty. Something no one could take away. Evan nodded slowly, like he understood more than my words. Makes sense. You always struck me as someone who wanted to hold the world accountable. I blinked. You barely knew me back then. His lips curved. Maybe, but I paid attention. The weight of his gaze pressed into me, and suddenly, the candle between us felt like a fragile boundary. I wanted to reach across, to let his hand cover mine like in the bar last night. But the fear of what that might mean stopped me. Instead, I muttered, "You shouldn't look at me like that." Like what? Like I'm worth something. The silence that followed was brutal. But then Evan leaned forward, voice low, steady. "Daniel, you are worth something. You always were." And for the first time in years, I believed it. Weeks slipped into a rhythm neither of us acknowledged aloud. Days were spent side by side in the newsroom, our conversations laced with unspoken electricity. Nights sometimes spilled into late dinners or long walks home, where our shoulders brushed but never lingered. It was both heaven and hell, close enough to taste something more, too terrified to take it. But the newsroom wasn't blind. Whispers started. A few lingering glances from coworkers, a raised eyebrow from our editor when Evan and I exchanged looks too long. Boston wasn't a small town, but newsrooms? They thrived on gossip. One afternoon, as I was scribbling edits on a draft, I overheard two colleagues whispering near the coffee machine. "Hayes and Miller," one snickered. "Think they're a little too friendly?" "Wouldn't surprise me," the other replied. "Always knew Miller was different." The word burned. Different. Not in the good way. In the way that meant target, outcast. My chest constricted, and suddenly I was 17 again, cornered in locker rooms, shoved against lockers, told in every way that who I was made me less. I slammed my pen down harder than I meant to. The noise made them look over, startled. They quickly dispersed. But the damage was done. That evening, I couldn't even look Evan in the eye as we left work. He noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" he asked, falling into step beside me. "Nothing," I lied. "Daniel." His voice was firm, too knowing. "Don't shut me out." I stopped on the sidewalk, the chill of Boston's night wrapping around us. "They're talking about us, Evan. About me. And I can't go through that again." His brows furrowed. "Go through what?" "The whispers. The stares. The judgment. I barely survived it the first time. I can't live my life as a headline in someone else's gossip." Evan's expression hardened. Not at me, but at the world. "Screw them. You don't owe anyone explanations." I shook my head. "Easy for you to say. You've always had confidence. People like you, they don't question you. They don't," my voice cracked. "They don't break you down for being who you are." Silence stretched between us, heavy and raw. Then, softly, Evan said, "You think I don't know what it's like? To hide? To feel like you're living half a life because the other half will get you destroyed?" I looked at him, startled. "Evan." His eyes were fierce, vulnerable all at once. "I know, Daniel. More than you realize. But I'm done hiding. And I don't want you to have to hide either." The city around us blurred. All I could see was him, standing under a flickering streetlight, offering me something I'd never dared to hope for. A life not lived in shadows. My throat tightened. "And if I'm not brave enough?" He stepped closer, his breath mingling with mine. "Then I'll be brave for both of us." The world held its breath. And for the first time, I let him close the distance. Our lips met, tentative, trembling, but real. Heat surged through me. Not just desire, but something deeper. Something terrifyingly pure. When we finally pulled apart, my chest heaved. Evan's forehead rested against mine. "Daniel," he whispered, "I don't want to pretend anymore." Neither did I. But I knew the battle ahead wouldn't be just between us, it would be against the world that had never made space for love like ours. The kiss should have felt like freedom, but the morning after, it felt like a loaded gun on the newsroom floor. I avoided his eyes all day. My lips still buzzed from the way his had pressed against them, soft yet certain, But every time I thought about it, panic flared. The newsroom wasn't safe for love. It wasn't safe for me. Evan, of course, didn't play by the same rules. He stopped by my desk 3 times before lunch, dropping off drafts, asking questions he didn't need to, brushing too close when he leaned over. Subtle enough for plausible deniability. Obvious enough that my chest burned with both longing and dread. At one point, our editor, Gray, shot me a look. The kind that said, "I see more than you think I do." By 3 o'clock, I couldn't breathe. I grabbed my coat and bolted outside. The cold Boston wind slapped me across the face like punishment. "Daniel!" Of course he followed. Evan's footsteps were fast, steady. "Wait!" I stopped, fists shoved in my pockets. "You can't, Evan, we can't do this here." He stepped in front of me, blue eyes sharp. "Do what? Breathe? Feel? Exist like we're not terrified." "Yes." My voice cracked. "Because people are watching. And I can't. I can't go through it again." He froze. "Go through what?" I swallowed hard, but the words clawed their way out. High school. College. Every time someone found out. The names. The looks. The way people treated me like a walking scandal instead of a person. "Do you have any idea what that does to you?" Evan's jaw tightened. He reached for me, then thought better of it, his hand falling to his side. "Yeah, I do." The rawness in his voice startled me. "I didn't tell you everything last time," he said. "About me. About why I was even on that rooftop the night I met you." My heart stuttered. "Evan." He inhaled, sharp. "I wasn't just passing by. I was up there for me too, ready to jump. You weren't the only one on that edge." The world tilted. "What?" "I saw you first," he whispered. "You, someone younger, scared out of his mind, and suddenly I couldn't do it. Because if I let you fall, then I had no reason not to follow. But if I pulled you back, maybe I could pull myself back too." The revelation cracked something deep inside me. For years I thought he had saved me. Now I realized we had saved each other. "Evan." My voice broke. He finally stepped closer, his hand brushing mine, tentative but deliberate. "So don't tell me I don't understand. I know the fear. I know the shame. But I'm done letting it control me. And I want you with me, Daniel. No more hiding." Tears blurred my vision. The city spun around us. Cars honking, people rushing by. But we were frozen in our own fragile orbit. I wanted to say yes. God, I wanted to. But fear clamped my ribs like iron. "I need time," I whispered. His hand lingered a moment longer before retreating. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the ache. "Then take time. I'll wait." Time didn't make things easier. If anything, it made them messier. Because once you cross the line of friendship into something more, even if unspoken, it changes everything. We moved like magnets in the newsroom, pulled together by invisible force. Late nights editing bled into whispered conversations. Shared glances turned into stolen touches when no one was looking. His hand brushing mine under the table in meetings. A lingering look when our knees touched in the cafeteria. And yet, always the weight of eyes around us. The whispers didn't stop. Some colleagues smirked when we walked in together. One afternoon, someone left a sticky note on my desk. "Watch who you're cozying up to, Miller." I crumpled it before Evan could see. But the pressure was suffocating. One Friday evening, I decided to skip drinks with the team. I couldn't stomach the sideways glances anymore. Instead, I headed home to my small apartment, where the silence was safer. Except Evan showed up an hour later, knocking on my door with takeout bags. "You weren't at O'Malley's," he said simply. "I wasn't in the mood. So I brought the bar to you." He lifted the bag's Chinese food, the kind greasy enough to cure sadness. I wanted to tell him to leave, but when he walked inside, setting the food on my coffee table, the loneliness in me cracked wide open. We ate in silence at first, the only sounds the crinkle of cartons and the faint hum of the heater. But then he leaned back, eyes locked on me. "You're pulling away," he said quietly. "I'm protecting us." His jaw clenched. "No, you're protecting yourself. From shadows. From ghosts that already took too much from you." I flinched. Daniel. His voice softened. I can't keep pretending this doesn't matter. Not to me. Not to you. My breath hitched. And what happens when the newsroom tears us apart? When the world outside this apartment reminds us we're not safe? He leaned forward, gripping my hand, forcing me to meet his gaze. Then we fight. Together. But I won't lose you to fear. Not again. His conviction lit something in me. A fire I'd buried for years. And before I could stop myself, I kissed him. Harder than the first time, desperate, hungry. He kissed me back with equal fervor, his hands cupping my face like he was afraid I'd vanish. We stumbled back onto the couch, mouths never parting. My chest burned with need, but it wasn't just lust. It was years of silence, of longing, of survival finally cracking open into something alive. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, he whispered against my lips, "You don't have to be alone anymore." And for the first time, I believed him. The next weeks were reckless, dangerous, intoxicating. We weren't official. We weren't public. But in the quiet corners of the newsroom, in late-night walks, in the safety of my apartment, we were us. He left toothbrushes in my bathroom. He knew which brand of coffee I liked without asking. He teased me until I laughed so hard my chest hurt, then held me when the laughter turned to tears. But the more we let ourselves fall, the more the outside world closed in. One morning, Gray called me into his office. I walked in, clutching my notepad, trying to appear calm. He didn't waste time. "Miller, are you and Hayes involved?" My stomach dropped. "What?" "Don't play dumb. I've been in this business long enough to recognize when something's brewing. I need to know if it's going to affect the work." Heat surged up my neck. "Our work isn't affected." His eyes narrowed. "The newsroom is a pressure cooker. Relationships complicate things. If something goes south, it blows back on the whole team. You understand." I nodded stiffly, throat dry. He leaned back, sighing. "Look, I don't care what you do in your personal life, but others will. And if word gets out, there'll be noise. Are you ready for that?" I swallowed hard, unable to answer. Gray's gaze softened slightly. "Think carefully, Miller. Some battles aren't worth fighting." That night, I told Evan everything. He listened quietly, jaw tight, fingers drumming against his knee. When I finished, he said, "So he basically told you to keep us in the closet." Not in those words. In every word that mattered. The bitterness in his voice stung. "Evan, maybe he's right. Maybe we should be careful. At least for now." His eyes flashed. "Careful? Daniel, we've spent our lives being careful. Careful doesn't change anything. It just lets the world win." I flinched. "It's not about winning. It's about surviving." He stood, pacing. "I'm tired of just surviving." The room pulsed with tension, our breaths harsh in the silence. Finally, he stopped, turning to me. "What do you want, Daniel? Do you want the sauce or not?" My throat burned. "I want you, but I don't know if I'm strong enough to want us." His face crumpled just slightly before he masked it. "Then maybe I'll have to be strong enough for both of us." He left that night, the door clicking shut behind him. And I sat alone, staring at the empty space he left, wondering if love was supposed to feel this heavy. The silence between us stretched for days. Evan kept his distance at work. He was still professional, sending me notes on drafts, passing along sources, but the warmth between us cooled. Our stolen moments vanished. The newsroom buzzed on, but I felt like I was walking through fog. I tried to tell myself it was safer this way. That distance was protection. But every time I looked across the room and saw him laughing with someone else, my chest ached. Then came the phone call. It was my mother. She rarely called. Our relationship was a patchwork of politeness and distance, but that evening her voice was sharp. "Daniel," she said, "your uncle saw you last weekend. He said you were with someone, a man. Is that true?" The air left my lungs. My throat closed. "Why does it matter?" Her silence was answer enough. Then, clipped, "You know how your father feels about this kind of lifestyle." My hands shook. "It's not a lifestyle. It's me." "Daniel," her voice cracked. then hardened. You've worked so hard. You have a good job. Don't throw it away for something that will only bring shame. Shame. Always shame. I hung up before she could say more. The tears came hot and fast. I slid down the wall of my apartment, curling into myself, the weight of their rejection suffocating. After all these years, I was still that boy on the rooftop, convinced I was too much of a burden to exist. I almost didn't answer the knock on my door. But when I opened it, Evan was standing there, eyes full of concern. I could tell something was wrong, he said softly. You've been a ghost all day. One look at mirrored eyes, trembling hands, and he stepped inside without asking. What happened? I broke. The words poured out. My mother, her disappointment, the word shame echoing in my ears. Evan listened, his jaw tight, his fists clenched at his sides. When I finished, he knelt in front of me, gripping my hands. Daniel, he said firmly, you are not shame. You are not wrong. You are not less. You hear me? My vision blurred. You saved me once, he continued, by being on that rooftop, by letting me see myself in you, by reminding me I wasn't alone. And I will spend the rest of my life reminding you of the same. You are not alone. The dam inside me broke. I sobbed into his shoulder, and he held me through it, steady, unshakable. When the tears finally slowed, he cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. I love you, he said simply. My heart stuttered. I've loved you since that night, he admitted. It took years for me to find you again, but when I did, I knew I wasn't letting go this time. Not for fear. Not for anyone. The words pierced through the fog, anchoring me. My chest ached, but not from pain. His was something else. Something like hope. I'm scared, I whispered. So am I, he said. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. And for the first time, I believed it was possible. The next day, the newsroom erupted with chaos. A political scandal broke. Corruption at City Hall. Documents leaked. It was all hands on deck, deadlines flying. Evan and I were assigned to work the story together. Hours blurred as we cross-checked sources, pieced timelines, and wrote furiously. At one point, Gray stormed over, barking for updates. When he left, Evan leaned close, his shoulder brushing mine. The contact was brief, but it steadied me. By midnight, the story was live. Front page. Our names side by side. As the newsroom cheered, champagne bottles popping, I realized something. This our work, our truth was stronger than whispers. Stronger than shame. And maybe, just maybe, so were we. The following weekend, Evan insisted we go to the harbor. The air was crisp, seagulls crying overhead, the city skyline sharp against the water. He stopped by the railing, turning to me with that fierce, vulnerable gaze. Daniel, he said, I'm done living in halves. If people talk, let them. If your family rejects you, I'll be your family. If the world tries to shame you, I'll stand beside you until it breaks. But I need to know, are you ready to stop hiding? The question hung heavy, terrifying. I thought of my mother's voice, sharp with judgment. I thought of sticky notes left on my desk, of whispers in hallways. I thought of every time I shrank myself to survive. And then I thought of 17-year-old me, standing on that rooftop, believing I had no reason to stay. And I thought of Evan, pulling me back. I stepped forward, closing the space between us. My hand found his, fingers lacing tight. I'm done hiding, I whispered. If the world can't handle us, that's their problem. I just want you. His face broke into a smile so radiant it felt like sunrise. He kissed me there, in broad daylight, with strangers passing by and the harbor wind tangling our hair. And for once, I didn't care who saw. The weeks that followed weren't perfect. My parents didn't call back. Some colleagues still whispered. The world didn't magically soften for us. But every night, when Evan's arms wrapped around me, when his laughter filled my apartment, when his lips brushed mine like a promise, I knew we had built something stronger than fear. And little by little, I stopped apologizing for existing. Months later, on a quiet evening, Evan and I sat on my couch, editing drafts side by side. He reached for my hand without looking, and I let him, our fingers tangled among scattered papers. Funny, he murmured. How life circles back. I smiled. What do you mean? Years ago, I pulled you back from the edge, but the truth is you pulled me back too. And now here we are, not just surviving, but actually living. I pressed my forehead to his. Together, together, he echoed. And for the first time, the word felt like home. Love didn't erase the past. It didn't silence the world's cruelty or heal scars overnight. But it gave me something stronger than fear. It gave me Evan. And in his arms, I finally understood being seen, being loved. Being alive wasn't something to apologize for. It was something to fight for. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.